And just like that, everything we've been waiting for in the summer I turned pretty came crashing down in episode 11. Episode 11 wastes no time reminding us of everything that brought us here. Belly's world has been messy since the beginning. Torn between Jeremiah's warmth and Conrad's storm. Jeremiah, the one who once seemed safe, ended up betraying her trust when he cheated. And no matter how much he tried to patch things up, some cracks just don't heal. Conrad, on the other hand, was always the unpredictable one. The boy who pulled her close and pushed her away in the same breath. And through all of that chaos, Belly has been trying to grow up. Trying to figure out who she is outside of this endless tug-of-war. By the time we hit this finale, she's been through a wedding disaster, heartbreak, and a reset in Paris, a city that gave her space to breathe, but not to forget. When Conrad shows up in Paris the day before her 22nd birthday, it's like a ghost from her past standing at her door. Only this time it's real, and it's right in front of her. This isn't the Conrad we saw running away from feelings, this is someone ready to fight for them. But even with him there, even with the obvious pull between them, you can feel the hesitation. Belly has built something in Paris, stability, distance, her own identity. Letting him back in means letting all the chaos in too, and she knows it. Still, they spend the day together, walking through Paris like two people who never stopped being in love. Every glance, every flashback that interrupts the moment tells us the truth, they never moved on. Not really. They were just waiting for the courage to admit it, but courage doesn't come easy in this show. Conrad is supposed to leave for Brussels at 8 p.m. and Belly asks him to stay a little longer, to join her birthday celebration. This moment is quiet on the surface, but underneath it's loaded with tension. Conrad sees her laughing with Conrad, jealousy burning even though he doesn't want to admit it. The audience gets pulled right into his head, right into the fear that maybe he's too late. Maybe Belly has already chosen someone else. Then comes the reveal, Belly and Conrad ended things 6 weeks ago. Suddenly, the air shifts. She's not tied to anyone, and that changes everything later. When her birthday cake comes out and she makes a wish, the writers don't even need to tell us what it is. We already know. Belly admits later that every birthday wish has always been for Conrad. And in this moment, even if she hasn't said it out loud yet, it's clear she hasn't let him go. That sets the stage for the biggest emotional push of the entire episode after the celebration. Belly and Conrad find themselves under the full moon by the river. With the music carrying a message neither of them can ignore, I only have eyes for you. It's almost like fate speaking through lyrics, reminding them and us that they've always been endgame. Conrad finally asks the question we've all been waiting for, have you moved on? And instead of words, Belly answers with a kiss. 3 seasons of tension explode in that moment, finally giving us the passion fans have been waiting for. But here's the thing, this show never gives an easy happily ever after. Right after that intimacy, doubt creeps back in. Belly starts second-guessing, wondering if letting Conrad in again will ruin the balance she's worked so hard to find. She doesn't want her world turned upside down again, not after clawing her way back to some peace. So she does what she thinks is best, she tells Conrad to go. To get on that 5 a.m. train to Brussels and not miss his conference because of her. She says, don't change your plans for me because I wouldn't change mine for you. I have a life here. On the surface, it sounds cold, like she's shutting the door. But really, it's fear talking, fear that she'll lose herself again if she lets him stay. Conrad, though, doesn't hold back. He finally says the words fans have been dying to hear for years, I love you. He lays his heart out, raw and real, but Belly can't say it back, not yet. She's scared that Conrad only loves her because of their past. Because his mom once planted the idea that they were meant to be. She thinks it's obligation, not choice, and that's not the kind of love she wants. So she pushes him away. It's brutal to watch, especially knowing they both still want each other. And with that, Conrad leaves, but the story doesn't end there. Once he's gone, Belly finally realizes the truth she's been running from. She knows who she is, and she knows what she wants. Brown hair, brown eyes, and the one certainty she can't shake, she loves Conrad. The fear is still there, but the love is stronger. And that's the push she needs. She chases after him, finding him on the train. And finally tells him what he's been waiting to hear, that she chooses him freely, fully, in every version of the world. And just like that, the game ends. After years of questions, doubts, and heartbreak, Belly and Conrad are finally together now. While Belly and Conrad's moment felt like the heartbeat of this finale, the writers didn't forget about Jeremiah, and they couldn't, because let's be real. Even though Belly finally made her choice, Jeremiah's shadow was never far away. Episode 11 gave him his own path. One that started shaky but ended up being a quiet turning point for his character. And honestly, it was needed. Jeremiah has always been the golden boy on the surface. The one who wore his emotions where everyone could see them. The one who tried to love openly without all the walls Conrad built. But underneath that, he's always been chasing something, chasing Belly, chasing approval, chasing a sense of worth that he could never quite grab. This finale finally gave him the chance to step outside of that pattern. With Belly choosing Conrad, Jeremiah had no choice but to face himself. And that's where his arc really shifted. The setup for Jeremiah's story comes through his cooking event. Something that at first seemed like background noise but actually becomes his defining moment. It's supposed to be his chance to shine. To show the world that he's capable of creating something meaningful on his own. But of course, in classic Summer I Turned Pretty fashion, things don't go smoothly. The bar where the event was planned ends up with a leak, leaving Jeremiah scrambling for a new location. The only option left? The cousin's house. And that's heavy. Because this isn't just any house, it's the same place where everything fell apart a year ago. The same place he stormed out of after the wedding disaster. Going back there isn't just about hosting a dinner. It's about facing ghosts, and for a second, it feels like Jeremiah might run again. That's who he's been for most of the series. The one who loves fiercely but folds under the weight of heartbreak. But here, he does the opposite. He steps into the discomfort, into the memories, and chooses to push forward. For once, Jeremiah isn't just living in Conrad's shadow or Belly's orbit. He's creating something for himself. And that's where Denise comes in. Denise could have easily felt like a last-minute addition, and to be fair, her presence is fresh, but the writers made it work. Instead of Jeremiah being stuck in a loop of what-ifs with Belly, Denise becomes a mirror for him. She tells him exactly what he needs to hear. Stop comparing yourself to Conrad. Stop believing you're second best. Stop shrinking yourself down just because you've lived in someone else's story for too long. And that lands. Because we've all seen Jeremiah spend years measuring himself against his brother, always believing Belly would only ever truly want Conrad. Denise calling him a 10 out of 10 feels like more than a compliment, it's a reset button. Then comes the moment fans didn't quite see coming. Jeremiah kisses Denise. At first, he pulls back, apologizing, almost embarrassed that he acted on impulse. But Denise doesn't let him slip away. She kisses him back, pulling him closer, proving that for once, Jeremiah isn't forcing a connection. It's mutual. And it's real. The contrast is clear when you think about Steven. Denise once kissed him and felt nothing. But with Jeremiah, it's different. The chemistry is there and it's natural. And it tells Jeremiah something he's needed to hear his entire life. He doesn't need Belly to be loved. The dinner itself ends up being a success, even with the chaos leading up to it. And in a quiet but powerful moment, Jeremiah's father, Adam, tells him he's proud. It's subtle, but it matters. Because Jeremiah hasn't just been chasing Belly's love, he's been chasing validation in general. And this time, he finally gets it. The most telling detail of Jeremiah's growth, though, comes in one small scene. At the dinner table, everyone is drinking champagne. Not just any champagne, but the champagne that was supposed to be for his wedding. A year ago, that bottle would have been a gut punch, a reminder of the moment he lost everything. But now, he's holding Denise's hand under the table, smiling and letting it go. The champagne isn't a symbol of heartbreak anymore. It's just a drink. That's growth. That's closure. And that's the beauty of Jeremiah's story here. For so long, he's been the one defined by Belly's choices, constantly waiting to see if she'd turn his way. But in this finale, he finally steps out of that cycle. He's not begging for her attention, he's not competing with Conrad, he's choosing himself. And in doing so, finding someone who chooses him back. It's quieter than Belly and Conrad's fireworks, sure, but it's no less important. Because it shows that Jeremiah can move on, and more than that, he deserves to, still. The writers didn't let it all be neat and tidy. There's still that lingering ache. That sense that Jeremiah will always carry a piece of Belly with him. Even if he doesn't want to admit it. You see it in the way he glances at her during moments of silence. In the way he stays a little too quiet when her name comes up. But he's learning to let it go, to build a future without her at the center. And that, in itself, is a victory. By the time the credits roll on Jeremiah's arc in this episode, he's not the boy begging for love anymore. He's the man choosing to stand on his own with Denise by his side. And finally realizing that life doesn't have to be defined by who Belly picked. It's a full circle moment that gives his character peace and gives fans the closure they didn't even realize they needed. Now, with Belly and Conrad locking in the emotional climax, and Jeremiah finding closure in his own way, the finale still had room for another couple that fans had been quietly rooting for all season. Taylor and Steven. Their arc didn't come with the same heavy weight of heartbreak or life-altering choices. But that's exactly why it worked. In an episode stuffed with raw emotion, heartbreak, and reconciliation, their storyline gave us a much-needed balance, humor, awkwardness, and finally, the comfort of two people realizing they're exactly where they're supposed to be. Taylor and Steven have always been the unexpected duo. From the very beginning, their relationship started off as something playful, almost like a subplot running alongside Belly's love triangle. But over time, it became clear they weren't just a distraction, they were the real deal. In episode 11, the writers leaned into that, showing us that their love may not be explosive like Belly and Conrad's, or heartbreaking like Jeremiah's, but it's steady, it's strong, and it's growing. The first real moment of tension for them comes when Taylor accidentally overhears Denise talking about Steven's future plans. Turns out, Steven has been thinking about moving to San Francisco for work. On the surface, it sounds like an exciting opportunity, but the problem? He hasn't told Taylor yet. This, of course, lights a fire under Taylor, who's already sacrificed a lot to move with him to Boston. Her reaction? Classic Taylor, fiery, emotional, and just the right amount of funny. Instead of confronting him right away, she tries to play it cool. But it's obvious she can't. The humor comes from her attempts to act unbothered while clearly being bothered. It cuts through the heavier storylines and gives the audience a chance to breathe, but beneath the laughs, the tension is real. Taylor feels blindsided. For someone who's finally learned to trust and invest in someone fully, finding out her boyfriend might be planning a huge move without even talking to her is a gut punch. And Steven? He's not keeping secrets to be shady, he's doing it because he's scared. Scared of holding Taylor back. Scared of repeating patterns she's already lived through with her mom, where her dreams were always sacrificed for someone else's choices. It's this fear that's kept him quiet, but of course, silence only makes things worse. The moment of truth comes when the two of them end up at the lake, a setting that carries so much history for this group of friends. Away from the noise of parties and events, it's just Taylor and Steven, stripped down to their honesty. And here, Steven finally admits the truth. He didn't want to tell her about San Francisco because he didn't want to be the reason she gave up her own life, her own dreams. He says he doesn't want to hold her back. That's when Taylor hits him with the line that defines their relationship: "I wouldn't move for you. I'd move with you." It's a small difference in words, but a massive difference in meaning. Moving for someone means sacrifice, giving up parts of yourself. Moving with someone means partnership, choosing to build something together. That's the essence of Taylor and Steven. They're not perfect, but they're learning. And they're committed to walking the same path without losing themselves in the process. And that's what makes their love so refreshing compared to the other relationships in the show. Belly and Conrad are filled with intensity. Jeremiah's love has always been wrapped up in longing. But Taylor and Steven? They're about teamwork. They're about laughter in the middle of chaos, about support without fear of being overshadowed. This finale gave them their happily ever after without forcing it, and it felt earned. One of the standout aspects of their arc in this episode is how it served as a breather for the audience. Every time the tension with Belly, Conrad, and Jeremiah threatened to get overwhelming, Taylor and Steven brought the light back in. Whether it was Taylor's playful sarcasm or Steven's awkward honesty, their dynamic reminded us that love doesn't always have to be dramatic to matter. Sometimes it's about the small promises, the shared dreams, and the willingness to choose each other every day. By the end of the episode, Taylor and Steven are solid, stronger than ever. They've had their fight, they've aired their fears, and they've made their choice to stick together no matter where life takes them. And unlike the uncertainty that clouded so many other relationships in this show, their ending feels like a sure thing. It's not just about geography or moving across states. It's about the fact that no matter where they go, they're in it together. And in a way, their story serves as a quiet lesson in the middle of all the chaos. Belly's journey has been about making the right choice, Jeremiah's about letting go. But Taylor and Steven's is about trust. About understanding that love doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finding someone who makes you stronger while letting you stay true to who you are. That's what makes their ending so satisfying. So, while all eyes were on the bigger love triangle, Taylor and Steven quietly stole their own piece of the spotlight in this finale. Their story might not have been as loud or as dramatic, but it gave fans something just as important: hope. Hope that love doesn't always have to be complicated, and that sometimes the best endings are the ones that feel simple, steady, and real. By the time we reach the closing stretch of episode 11, there's this unmistakable feeling hanging in the air, a heaviness, like the whole story is holding its breath. That's the power of a finale like this. It doesn't just tie up loose ends. It makes you feel the weight of everything that's come before, all the summers, all the heartbreak, all the laughter, all the choices that led these characters here. And in this last chapter, that finality is everywhere. The opening of the episode already set the tone with Conrad standing in Paris, flashing back to the years of memories he shared with Belly. That wasn't just nostalgia for him. It was the show reminding us of everything these two had been through. Every fight, every tender moment, every near miss. And by the time Belly runs after him at the train station, finally admitting she loves him and chooses him, it feels like the last piece of a puzzle snapping into place. Their ending wasn't just about romance. It was about years of tension finally collapsing into certainty. The long game paid off, and fans who rooted for them since day one finally got the closure they wanted. But even with that satisfaction, the episode carried this strange, bittersweet energy. It's the kind of mood that makes you smile and ache at the same time. You're happy that Belly and Conrad got their moment, but you can't ignore the trail of pain it took to get here. Jeremiah's heartbreak, Belly's years of confusion, the broken friendships, the missed opportunities. All of it sat in the background like shadows that would never completely go away. That's what gave the finale its depth. It wasn't just about wrapping things up neatly, it was about acknowledging that real love, real life, always leaves scars. The writers leaned into that by giving the entire group little moments of closure. Jeremiah hosting his dinner at Cousins wasn't just about proving himself as a chef. It was about reclaiming a space that had been marked by failure and pain. It was about showing that he could walk back into the place where his heart broke and leave with something stronger. Taylor and Steven's lake scene wasn't just about their relationship. Either, it was about choosing stability in a world where nothing ever seemed stable. These storylines all echoed the same theme: endings don't erase the past, but they give you the power to move forward. One of the strongest choices in this finale was how the music shaped the mood. From the opening scene with Conrad waiting for Belly to the dance by the river under the full moon, every song felt deliberate, almost like a narrator whispering truths the characters couldn't say out loud. When the lyrics "I Only Have Eyes for You" played as Belly and Conrad danced, it wasn't just background noise. It was fate, destiny, the unspoken connection between them finally being acknowledged. The show has always used music as an emotional anchor, but here it felt like the soundtrack of closure, one last reminder that this was the story's end. And then there's the pacing. The episode stretched out to nearly an hour and 20 minutes, which is practically movie length. That extra time mattered. It gave room for every storyline to breathe, for every character to find their conclusion without being rushed. Even so, there were moments that felt fast, like Belly going from uncertainty to declaring her love in what felt like seconds. But maybe that's the point. Sometimes life changes in an instant. Sometimes all the years of doubt collapse into one moment of clarity. And there's no dragging it out. Belly realizing she couldn't live without Conrad wasn't about timing. It was about inevitability. What really stuck with me, though, was the emotional cloud that hovered over the entire episode. You could feel that it wasn't just a finale for the characters, but for the fans watching, too. 3 seasons of build-up, of debates about Team Conrad versus Team Jeremiah, of fans dissecting every look and every kiss, all came to an end here. And with that ending comes a strange kind of grief. Not because the story disappointed, but because it's over. That's the power of a show like this. It pulls you in so deeply that when it ends, you feel the loss right alongside the characters. And of course, the writers didn't shy away from delivering this scene that had been 3 seasons in the making. Belly and Conrad finally shared the most passionate, intimate moment of the series. One that didn't hold back. After years of will they won't they, it was raw, it was messy, and it was exactly what fans had been waiting for. It was almost like the writers saying, "We know you've waited for this. Here it is, no filters, no holding back." That boldness gave the finale an edge, a sense that they were willing to push the boundaries to give the audience a payoff. That felt earned, but passion aside, the real turning point came after. When Belly questioned if she was making a mistake, when she pushed Conrad away because she was afraid he'd throw her life into chaos again. That moment hit harder than the kiss itself, because it reminded us that love isn't just about passion, it's about risk. About deciding whether the chaos is worth it. Belly's hesitation was relatable because who hasn't been there? Standing on the edge of something that could be everything, but fearing it could also destroy you? That's what made her eventual choice so powerful. She didn't just fall back into Conrad's arms blindly, she ran after him knowing the risk, knowing the history, but choosing him anyway. That's what made their ending feel final. By the last act, with Belly and Conrad together at the cousin's house, Jeremiah at peace with Denise and Taylor, and Steven solid in their love. The show gave us its message: life is messy, love is complicated, but endings can still be beautiful. And even though the story closed, it left us with that lingering feeling that these characters would go on, that the summers would keep coming even if we wouldn't be there to see them. So after all the heartbreak, the waiting, and the never-ending debates about who Belly should be with, episode 11 gave us the answer in the clearest way possible. Belly chose Conrad not by accident, not because he just happened to be there, but because she finally accepted what she had known deep down since the very first summer. He was the one her heart was always chasing. That last train station scene wasn't just about two characters reuniting. It was the show making a statement. After all the love triangles, after all the detours, this was always where the story was heading. And honestly, that's what makes this finale feel so satisfying yet so heavy at the same time. Fans who were Team Conrad have been screaming for this moment since season 1. And they finally got the closure they wanted. But if you were Team Jeremiah, this ending probably stung. The show didn't just sideline Jeremiah, it made you feel his heartbreak in a raw and real way. The pain on his face, the quiet way he let Belly go, it was crushing. And that's what made the finale work so well. It wasn't about picking sides anymore. It was about showing the cost of love. Somebody was always going to get hurt, and Jeremiah was that somebody, but beyond the triangle. This episode was about growth. Belly isn't the same girl she was when we first met her on that beach. Back then, she was wide-eyed, torn between two brothers, and unsure of who she was outside of them. By the end of episode 11, she's different, stronger, clearer. Her choice wasn't just about Conrad. It was about finally listening to herself, finally trusting her heart. And that shift gave her character the ending she deserved. She went from being pulled into directions to standing firm in her own truth. That's what makes this finale more than just a love story. It's a coming-of-age story wrapped in heartbreak and hope. The supporting characters each got their little moments too, and that balance mattered. Taylor and Steven's future feels steady. Jeremiah's dream of being a chef feels like it has purpose. And even the cousin's house itself feels like it's going to live on with memories of joy, instead of just ghosts of pain. That's what great finals do. They don't just wrap up one storyline. They honor the whole world. And The Summer I Turned Pretty did exactly that from a storytelling perspective. This episode was bold. Some finals play it safe, but this one leaned into risk. It gave us the closure fans demanded, but it didn't shy away from leaving scars behind. It made you happy and broke your heart at the same time. And let's be real, that's life. No one gets a perfect ending. But what we got was real, messy, and unforgettable. Now let's talk about how it felt watching it all play out. Sitting through those last 20 minutes, I couldn't help but feel that tightness in my chest. That mix of wanting more and knowing this was the end. That's how you know a show hit the right notes. When you can't stop thinking about it even after the credits roll. When you replay those final scenes in your head. Like you're still sitting in the cousin's house with them. That's the kind of impact this finale left. And the music, I can't leave without pointing that out again. It wasn't just a soundtrack. It was the emotional engine of the episode. Every lyric, every beat, every slow fade hit you right in the gut. When Belly and Conrad danced under the moon. And the words "I only have eyes for you" drifted through. It felt like the entire journey distilled into one perfect, haunting moment. The kind of scene that sticks with you long after you shut off the screen. So now the big question, was this the ending fans deserved? Honestly, I'd say yes. It wasn't perfect and it didn't make everyone happy, but that's exactly why it worked. It stayed true to the messy, complicated nature of love and growing up. Belly's choice wasn't neat, Jeremiah's heartbreak wasn't brushed aside, and Conrad's redemption wasn't easy. It all felt earned. And when a story makes you feel that many things at once, joy, sadness, anger, relief, you know it did its job. At the end of the day, episode 11 wasn't just a finale, it was a farewell. A farewell to the summers, the love triangles, the late-night talks by the ocean, the heartbreaks on porches, the laughter in kitchens, and the pain in silence. It closed the book on one of the most emotionally charged young adult stories we've seen in years. And it left its mark. Fans will argue forever about Team Conrad and Team Jeremiah, but in the end, what really matters is how deeply this story made us feel. And episode 11 delivered that in every scene. So, that's the breakdown of The Summer I Turned Pretty episode 11. What did you think? Did the ending live up to your expectations? Were you satisfied with Belly's choice, or do you still think Jeremiah deserved more? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I know this finale is going to spark debates for a long time.